if you're a Linux user in need of an Office suite and you don't want to use a proprietary solution like WPS Office, or worse, a web-based proprietary solution like Google Docs or Office 365, you're probably going to go with LibreOffice, licensed under GPL v3, LGPL v3, and MPL v2. And if you want a web-based solution, you're probably going to go with Nextcloud Office, which is just Collabora, which is just LibreOffice. But that doesn't mean that LibreOffice was the start of the project. In fact, it's not even a fork of a project. It's a fork of a fork of a project starting all the way back in 1985 with StarWriter by Star Division. This was created by 16-year-old Marco Borges out of his garage. Now, at the time, it was just the writer component. Like Writer is today, this is just for making documents. It's the equivalent of Microsoft Word. As he added further tools, it became a full Office suite, becoming StarOffice. At this point, the project was not open source, it was not free software, it was very much a commercial proprietary project. Now, part of the reason it became StarOffice is 3 years later in 1988, Microsoft Office was announced, and 2 years later in 1990, it finally released. Microsoft Office, as you might expect, became very popular very quickly, and StarOffice tried to position itself as a cheaper alternative, and it did so with relative success. At the height of its popularity, it had 25% of the German market share. And for any of you classic Linux users, you might even remember a port by Caldera Inc. with StarOffice 3.1. Now, where things began to change is 1998, because prior to this point, every single user had to pay for a copy. Now, it was free for private use. But 1999 is where things really started to change. This is when Sun Microsystems purchased the company, and with the 5.1a release, it was now available free for private and commercial use. In the following year of 2000, much like what happened with Netscape becoming Mozilla, Sun decided to relicense the vast majority of the codebase, starting up a new project. So with the 5.2 release, this saw the beginning of OpenOffice, dual licensed under the LGPL and the Sun Industry Standard source license. But this didn't mean that StarOffice just suddenly stopped. Instead, OpenOffice kind of acted like the community edition of StarOffice. This was the open core that anybody could go and compile, they could go and fork the project and do whatever they want with it. And then StarOffice built off of that open core, adding in additional proprietary components that they either wouldn't or couldn't open source. Fun little tidbit, OpenOffice at the time wasn't officially its name. Legally, it was OpenOffice.org, and there's a very good reason for that. There was already a trademark being held by OpenOffice Automatisering in the Benelux Union. This is a politico-economic union between Luxembourg, Netherlands, and Belgium. Everything continued on pretty much as is until 2002, around the 6.0 release. At this point, some people weren't exactly happy with changes being made, or in some cases the lack of changes, and we started seeing some of the really important forks. The first one being one that you probably have no idea existed: NeoOffice. This is a commercial project developed by Planamessa Software, and as you might be able to tell by the graphics here, this was made for macOS. Now, there is a very good reason for this. So prior to OpenOffice 3.0 and StarOffice 9.0 in 2009, OpenOffice did not have a native macOS UI. What this meant is if you wanted to use OpenOffice on macOS, you had to use something like Xquartz, a macOS X11 server. NeoOffice basically fixed the problem by giving it a macOS UI. Nowadays, NeoOffice is a fork of LibreOffice, but the project is still going, with its latest release being about 4 months ago. The other fork you probably don't recognize is OOO Build, rebranded to GoOO, or Go OpenOffice, or as I like to call them, Oo Build and Goo. This project was eventually sponsored by Novell, who for a time were the owners of SUSE. the same Novell who was one of the targets of the SCO Group lawsuits. This project initially wasn't intending to be a complete fork. It started as a patch set of enhancements on top of OpenOffice, much like Sun was doing internally with StarOffice, but this was being done under the GPL. But as free software advocates tend to do, they started to get a little bit worried. As Go OpenOffice kept getting better, it kept bringing in things like better OOXML support, and this led some people to believe that maybe there's going to be weird patent claims from Microsoft, and it further legitimized this as an actual format for document storage when we should be going with something that's a lot easier to work with and a lot more open in a sense. Now, both NeoOffice and Go OpenOffice, much like StarOffice, were tracking changes from the main OpenOffice branch. But around the mid-2000s, things started to seem really weird for the project. Sun started just pulling devs off the projects. They stopped accepting a lot of community contributions, and even went so far as selling a proprietary code license to IBM for their own Office suite called Lotus Symphony in 2007. So maybe the free software advocates were right. A hard fork of OpenOffice was needed, a hard fork that protected the integrity of the codebase that Sun did not hold the keys to. So in September of 2010, the Open Document Foundation announced a fork of Go OpenOffice. This was called LibreOffice. And it's a very good thing they did so, because Oracle was in the middle of purchasing Sun. When they did so, they temporarily rebranded the project to Oracle OpenOffice, and proceeded to fire the rest of the Star Division team that was still working at the company. From my research, they never really announced why. Many people speculate that maybe the project just simply lost its value. Too many people were using things like Microsoft Office at this point. It didn't really make any sense to keep these employees around for something that wasn't really making that much money. They wanted the other things that Sun had and had no interest in getting into the Office suite space. But they didn't just bin the project. Instead, the project and the trademarks were transferred to the Apache Software Foundation. This was done at the suggestion of IBM, because they were still working on their Office suite and they had absolutely no interest in working with a copyleft license. And with Apache, OpenOffice was once again rebranded to Apache OpenOffice, which is where it lives today. And it was relicensed once again under the Apache license. So today, in 2023, the only projects that are still going are NeoOffice, which is a fork of LibreOffice, and technically Apache OpenOffice. Lotus Symphony is very long dead. That stopped in about 2013. But with Apache OpenOffice, if you saw my previous video on it, it's basically being kept alive with completely fake commits that are changing absolutely nothing of value. Now, in case you're curious about a graphical timeline, I will leave this linked in the description down below. It does a really good job at explaining the absolute mess that is the history of this project. But nowadays, it's a lot cleaner than this point. So, let me know, when did you first jump into this history? Were you using StarOffice back in the day? Had you used NeoOffice? Did you use IBM Lotus Symphony? I would love to know. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you like the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to the LibreOffice linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and let's hope another fork doesn't happen.
Something like this.